Stop, you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Subscribe now, we have new stories every day. Now let's go. Jon opened the door and saw his friend Eric standing on the doorstep, crying. Eric, what happened, man? Come in, it's raining outside, Jon said. They entered Jon's living room and sat down. Jon's wife, Kelly, came in. Eric, what's wrong with you? Kelly asked. Honey, could you give us a moment? Maybe you could go to the mall or something, Jon asked. Of course, Kelly said. Kelly left, and Jon sat there, looking at Eric, waiting for him to say something. Eric, something is clearly bothering you. If you tell me what it is, maybe I can help, Jon said. Yeah, help, that's why I came here. I need your help, Eric said. Okay, what kind of help do you need? To regain my confidence as a man. What? What do you mean? For the past 3 years, I haven't felt like myself, not like the man I used to be, Eric confessed. What are you talking about? For the past 3 years, I've been a cuckold, Eric blurted out. A cuckold? I know that word. What does it mean again? Oh, I remember. It's a man whose wife is involved with other guys. Are you saying that for the last 3 years Lisa has been with other men? Jon asked. Not with other men, just with one guy, Eric said. And who is it? Jon asked. Mark? Mark? Mark has been with your wife for 3 years. Jon asked in disbelief. Yes. Why didn't you stop it? At first, I was excited about it. The first time it was what I wanted. I wanted to see Lisa with another man. I thought it would be a one-time thing, but Lisa invited him to come over as often as possible to be with her, and he looked at me and laughed. He said he understood why she wanted him around. I couldn't do anything or say anything. So, Mark has been coming to your house for 3 years to be with Lisa? Jon asked. Not always. Sometimes she goes to his place, and sometimes they go away for the weekend. Like right now, they've gone away for the weekend, Eric said. Why do you let them keep doing this? Jon asked. I'm not strong enough to stop them. I tried. Mark hit me, tied me up, and told me never to try that again, or I would regret it. Lisa just laughed in my face. Jon, I haven't been with my wife for 3 years. I can't even sleep in the same bed with her anymore. When Mark is around, he stays with her, and when he's not, she stays alone. I've been sleeping in the guest room for 3 years, Eric said. Damn it, Eric, you really messed up. You go to work, bring home your paycheck, pay the mortgage and other expenses, and yet you have to watch Mark being with Lisa. That's awful, Jon said. They don't let me watch anymore. They only let me watch them on my birthday and our anniversary. The rest of the time, I'm not allowed, Eric said. So you said you needed my help. What can I do? Jon asked. I want you to help me get a divorce, and I need you to make sure they don't hurt me and that she can't talk me out of it. I'm afraid I might give in, Jon. I don't want to give up. I have to stay away from her. I need your help with this, Eric said, tearing up. All right, Eric, I'll help you. Right now, let's go to my office and start working on the divorce papers. You guys signed a prenuptial agreement, right? Jon asked. Yes. All right. We'll use it to make sure we stand our ground in the divorce. They filled out the papers, and then Jon called his friend Steve, who was visiting his parents in town. Hey, Steve answered. Steve, it's Jon. I'm calling in one of those favors you owe me, Jon said. Of course, man. What's going on? Steve asked. My friend Eric needs to leave town and disappear for a little while. You're leaving soon. I want you to take him with you and let him stay at your place for a bit, Jon said. Sure, no problem. Just bring him to my parents' place when he's ready, Steve replied. Jon got Eric out of town. When Mark and Lisa returned to Eric and Lisa's house on Sunday evening, Jon was already waiting on the porch. Jon, what are you doing here? Lisa asked. She was nervous because she was holding Mark's hand, and until that moment, their relationship had been a secret. I'm waiting for you, Jon said. For me? Why are you inside with Eric? Lisa asked. Eric isn't there. Actually, I'm waiting for you on his behalf. What? What are you talking about? Jon stood up, walked over to Lisa and Mark, and handed Lisa a folder with divorce papers. Consider these officially served, Jon said, walking past them towards his car. Lisa opened the folder and looked at the papers inside. Divorce? Is this some kind of joke? Eric isn't divorcing me, Lisa said. Clearly he is. He mentioned something about you cheating on him for the past 3 years. That can't be true, can it? Jon asked. Mark and Lisa looked shocked, and Jon knew why. Oh, by the way, give my office a call if you and your lawyer want to contest the divorce or any of the proposed property division options, Jon said. Jon opened his car door. Jon, damn it, don't leave. Tell me where he is. I demand you tell me where he is right now, Lisa shouted. I have no idea where he is right now, Lisa. He said he needed to leave town. He did it because he thought that either you or Mark would try to force him to stay in the marriage. Well, we'll be in touch with you soon enough. Have a good night, Jon said. Jon smiled as he drove away, knowing there was still a long road ahead. By Monday afternoon, Lisa and her lawyer, George Williams, were sitting in John's office. My client is aware that infidelity is not sufficient grounds for divorce in this state, but he believes that 3 years of blatant cheating and hostility from you and Mark have created irreconcilable differences. That's why he has decided to dissolve the marriage before most of his money is spent by you on gifts for Mark, like that new car, which my client is claiming, as you likely noticed in the proposed settlement terms, John said. This is all a misunderstanding. All I need is 5 minutes with Eric, and this whole situation will be resolved, Lisa said. Yes, when he came to see me on Saturday, it seemed like he agreed with you. He was certain that if he saw you, he would give in to your demand not to pursue the divorce. He said he was leaving town, so you wouldn't be able to see him and convince him otherwise. Obviously, Eric is standing up for himself for the first time in 3 years. I have to say, I don't blame you for not wanting the divorce, Lisa. I've reviewed your prenuptial agreement, and there isn't a single weak spot in it. You won't get much. You'll lose those meal tickets Mark has been feeding you with, John said. You son of a *****, you have no right to talk to me like that, Lisa snapped. Don't I? I'm Eric's attorney. I'm informing you that you have a lot to lose in this divorce. I'm also Eric's friend, and I'm telling you how upset I am about what you've done to him. I'm your brother, and I'm expressing how disappointed I am in you personally. Oh, and by now, Mark should have already been served with some paperwork regarding the family split. We are claiming serious financial compensation for his involvement in all of this, John said. You're a son of *****. Lisa said and slapped John with all her strength. George, I suggest you restrain your client. If she does that again, I'll have to call the police and report an assault, John said. Lisa, let's leave. We clearly won't achieve anything here, George said. George and Lisa left. At noon, Kelly walked into John's office and immediately slapped him with all her strength. That's the second time I've been hit today. I could understand the first time, but I have no idea why you're hitting me, John said. How could you side with Eric against your own sister? I know Eric is your friend, but how could you do that to Lisa? Kelly exclaimed. Well, when I found out what Lisa has been doing to Eric for the past 3 years, I stopped caring that she's my sister, John said. What? What are you talking about? What do you think Lisa has been doing to Eric for the past 3 years? Kelly asked. Mark, John said. Mark? What do you mean by Mark? Kelly asked. Lisa has been sleeping with Mark for 3 years. On top of that, she made sure Eric knew about it all. They even forced him to watch them together. He hasn't slept with her for 3 years. He hasn't even been able to sleep in his own bed for that long. Lisa has been spending Eric's money on Mark, including buying Mark a new car. And both of them have treated Eric like garbage. Eric came to me, told me what's been happening, and asked for help getting out. So I'm helping him, John said. Kelly was speechless. She had no idea that Lisa had done any of this. No one knew. They had kept it a secret for all 3 years. Why? Why had Eric put up with it for so long? Kelly asked. Because he's a gullible type, because he was weak, but now he's starting to fight back. He's trying to regain his dignity and get rid of his unfaithful wife, John said. Lisa tried to block the divorce and sought a court order to meet with Eric face to face. John attended the hearing regarding the meeting, but Eric wasn't there. Your Honor, if I could just see my husband, we could work this all out and move on with our lives, Lisa said. Your Honor, she's right. If she spent even 5 minutes alone with my client, he would give in. But he asked me to prevent exactly that. My client does not want to see her until the divorce is finalized, John said. And why is that? The judge asked. Your Honor, my client is naturally very timid and submissive. For 3 years, he did nothing while his wife shared a bed with another man, spent his money on that man, and didn't stand up for himself when they humiliated him, sometimes even physically or verbally abused him. My client knows that if he were to see her, she would have no trouble convincing him to cancel everything and return to her. He doesn't want to go back to her. He wants his nightmare to end, John said. I see. So you're claiming that a face-to-face meeting would result in your client agreeing to return to a hostile environment, the judge asked. Yes, Your Honor, John replied. Then I will respect your client's wishes. This court will not order a face-to-face meeting, the judge said. Judge, be reasonable. I need to see him. You must make him come and talk to me, Lisa said. Young lady, you are very fortunate that I am not the judge who will preside over your divorce, should this case go to trial. If I understand the facts correctly, you have no grounds to insist. Your only hope to stay in the marriage is to convince your husband to forget about this divorce. But let me tell you something, coercion is a crime. So if you happen to persuade him against his will, you will face something far worse than a divorce. You'll be looking at jail time, the judge said. Lisa continued to use every method she could think of to force Eric to meet with her. Meanwhile, John was pushing the divorce forward. George tried to delay it as much as possible, as that was what Lisa wanted, but 6 months later, Jon petitioned the judge to hear the case and make a ruling despite Lisa's ongoing attempts to block it. The judge ordered that Eric be present when the case was presented. Lisa finally thought she would have a chance, but the judge issued a restraining order against her, and Jon, along with several of Eric's friends, kept a close watch on him 24/7 to ensure she couldn't get near him. On the first day in court, Lisa was already in the courtroom when Jon and Eric walked in. Lisa immediately stood up and rushed over to Eric. "Oh baby, I've missed you. Tell the judge we don't need this. Everything will be fine. You'll see," Lisa said. Eric said nothing. He just looked at Jon. Jon looked at Lisa. "You're wasting your time, Lisa. Eric is on the path to reclaiming his dignity. The manhood that you and Mark took from him almost 4 years ago," Jon said. The hearing began. George did everything he could to prepare the case to block the divorce, but by then, he knew the battle was lost. He focused more on contesting the proposed settlement and the prenuptial agreement. After that, it was Jon's turn to present his version. "Your Honor, I have submitted video and photographic evidence, both of the affair between Lisa and Mark and of their mistreatment of my client. You have reviewed this evidence. My client loved his wife and, to be honest, still loves her now. But after 3 years of betrayal, abuse, infidelity, and spending his money on gifts for her lover, my client was pushed to his limit. That breaking point came on Friday night, after which he came to me to start the divorce process. My client's wife and her lover were leaving for the weekend, something they often did. Before they left, my client overheard his wife's lover telling her how happy he was that she finally allowed him to get her pregnant. With everything my client had already endured, the thought of pretending someone else's child was his own broke him. For the first time in 3 years, he started to fight back. He wasn't going to stand by and accept that his wife was having a child with another man. So he came to me. He asked me to help him get out of the situation. He asked me to help him get a divorce, to escape from her, to return to real life. I did everything I could to help him, Your Honor. His wife and her lawyer have used every obstacle and every trick in the book to try and stop the divorce. Do you know why, Your Honor?" Jon asked. "I have a pretty good idea, but it needs to be on the record, so please continue," the judge said. "When my client and his wife got married, she insisted on a very strictly worded prenuptial agreement. At the time, she had a high-paying job and my client was in an entry-level position. He signed the agreement because he thought they would be together forever. Now, the document she used to protect herself at the start of the marriage has become her nightmare at the end. The document clearly states that no alimony or spousal support will be paid. It also specifies that all financial assets will be divided according to the percentage of their combined income that each of them contributes. 2 years after their wedding, my client was promoted to a management position, and now he contributes over 75% of their combined income. So even with 2 years left before his promotion is fully accounted for, he will still receive more than 70% of their total financial assets. The prenuptial agreement also clearly states that property belongs to whoever owned it before the marriage. My client's wife owned 2 small houses in an area of the city where property values have plummeted. My client owned the house they lived in. This property has improved, and the surrounding area has seen a rise in property values, so the value of his property has more than tripled. So, you see, Your Honor, my client's wife stands to lose access to significant money if the divorce goes through. The bank records I submitted as evidence show that 2 months ago she already tried to relocate, but my client wisely froze his assets until the divorce is finalized. Your Honor, my client has offered a settlement in line with the terms of the prenuptial agreement. My client's wife and her lawyer have contested the proposed settlement, as well as the validity of the prenuptial agreement. However, she was the one who insisted on the contract in the first place, and she worded it very carefully to make it as strong as possible. She wanted it to be ironclad in case they ever divorced, and she succeeded, unfortunately for her. Now it's come back to bite her, Jon said. "I will retire to review the circumstances of the case and make a decision. We will reconvene here at 2 o'clock, the judge said. Jon and Eric's friends carefully ensured that Lisa stayed away from Eric during the break. At 2 o'clock, everyone was waiting for the judge to return to the courtroom. After reviewing all the facts of this case, I have made my decision. I approve the petition for divorce. It is clear that Eric wants to leave, and Lisa is trying to hold on to her meal ticket." The judge said, "No, you can't do this. I don't agree with this. I don't agree. You can't force me to get divorced if I don't want to," Lisa said. "Actually, I can't by law. This marriage is dissolved. I declare this session adjourned," the judge said. Jon turned to Eric. "Congratulations, you're a free man," Jon said. He extended his hand, but instead, Eric hugged him. "Thank you, Jon. I can never repay you for this. You gave me much more than freedom. You restored my dignity," Eric said. "I'm glad I could help. Now, the vacation at my parents' place might be a bit awkward, but that's a small price to pay. Hey, I wanted to ask you, how do you like your new car? Jon asked. I love it. If she hadn't bought Mark that Challenger, I would have gotten one myself. It was such a pleasure when we showed up with a court order to take it from him, Eric said. Jon smiled. Let's get out of here, Jon said. Jon and Eric walked out of the courtroom. As they did, they saw Lisa sitting there crying, and both smiled. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.